Individual is currently out of custody, has a GPS monitor on their ankle, and we're hoping that had we had that state law, we would have been able to keep this individual who's providing firearms to individuals who are involved in several cases and several shootings within our city in custody, and the danger they are. We also want to compliment the courts yesterday. We want to compliment the district court judge who kept individual in a similar situation in custody for taking firearms and possibly working to distribute them on school properties. These individuals who are passing these firearms and acting as the middle person to put firearms in the arms of individuals who shouldn't possess them or have not purchased them, they're a big part of why we have so many legal firearms in the city of Albuquerque and what's driving our violent crime rates. So there's a lot of things, like I talked about, that we're going to be discussing. Aiden Kellner, he's the main suspect in this case. Mr. Kellner also utilized two other individuals, Jimmy Ward and Riley Kellner, his brother, in the rash of these incidents. But so far, a total of 9 guns were purchased by Aiden Kellner. You can see kind of a little distribution here of the firearms that were purchased. You know, the key thing is these guns were properly purchased. There were no violations. You know, gun stores did nothing wrong. Clerks at these stores did nothing wrong. These were properly purchased firearms. The thing is, Mr. Kellner then provided these firearms to others, and that's where we started to see the issues and the problems. 7 of the guns were recovered. 2 of the guns have not been recovered, and of those 7 recovered guns, they are tied to 12 shootings in the metro area that span back to, I believe, October of 20 or December 2019 somewhere. They give you some dates here and they'll go over it. So despite the legal purpose, most of them ended up in the hands of relatives, friends, and others who were involved in 17 different shootings across the city, and 5 people were injured and 163 rounds were fired. Like we stated, there is illegal guns, and this is how guns get into hands of individuals who shouldn't have these firearms. And if I remember correctly, it's 12 shootings within the city and 5 more in surrounding jurisdictions, which gives us the total number of 17. But if I got something wrong, Aaron or somebody else will correct it. So thank you guys for being here, and we're going to go ahead and go through the PowerPoint with Gilbert. So we'll turn it over to Gilbert.
So yeah, as the chief said, these guns on this map represent all the shootings that resulted from the guns. So you can see it spread out throughout the city. I think there was one BCSO case up at the top. And now I think all the rest of them are APD cases where there were shootings at parties, at a lot of them at parks. Some of them, a lot of them indiscriminately just fired in the air. But as we know, and we'll get to this one that the chief remembers this well, there was one where I want to say like 50-something shots were fired, and maybe 10 homes were hit during that party. And it's a miracle nobody died. And it's a miracle we have no fatalities in any of these shootings. But we have seen similar types of shootings throughout the city, and our department is still investigating all of those.
You know, one of the things that I want to mention about the map is, you know, 27 years ago, 28 years ago, when I went through the police academy, we were taught basic principles. They said, you know, most crime occurs within 6 miles of your home. And they had all these stats that they taught us. And this is one of those things where law enforcement has to evolve, and we have to look at things differently. This map reaches the far east side to the far west side of the city, and these firearms were used throughout the city. And in particular, those ones up in the Northwest Area Command, it caused a huge issue for the community. They led to a lot of people being afraid, and it actually led to community meetings and Saturday meetings between the area commander at the time and those neighborhoods because of the fear that was created because of all the shots that were fired and all the homes that were struck during that party call in the Northwest.
Yeah. So we'll just go through quickly through the different guns that were purchased. So this is the first one, a Glock 26. You'll see kind of the pattern. So it was purchased in October 2019, recovered in February of 2020, so just a few months later. 17-year-old fled from police and was captured with a gun in a sweatshirt pocket. That gun was able to be matched to this shooting on October 21st. So after they got it in 2020, they went back and found it was tied to this shooting right here. This was on Ridgecrest. And you'll see a lot of these shootings where nobody was struck, but a lot of gunfire was reported, and usually through shot spotters. The only way we knew that that gunfire happened, usually someone driving by or shooting at a home or shooting in the air. But because of this technology, we're able to match it to that gun. So this is the next gun, an AR pistol, purchased shortly after that, December 2019. This is one that has not been recovered, so we don't know yet if it's matching any other shootings. Next gun is a Glock 43 9mm. This was a few months after that, March 2020. That was recovered later in November. This one's interesting because it was reported stolen after we actually recovered it. So, and this was an associate of Aiden Kellner's, but we were able to tie it to a large shooting at during a Halloween party that BCSO investigated. This is another 9mm handgun that was purchased in May of 2020. This one was actually recovered from Aiden Kellner. He was consuming alcohol, fired 4 times in the air, and he was summoned for negligent use of a firearm. The gun and casings were tagged into evidence, and I'm not sure if was this one. Go to the next one. Okay, so I don't think we tied that to any shootings. This next one, purchased in June of that year, 2020, recovered in May, almost a year later, and this was recovered in Phoenix. So you see these guns can travel anywhere with these individuals. So a 20-year-old male, Phoenix police were serving a search warrant, and they recovered it and matched it back to Aiden Kellner. This Glock 30 was later in that year, November 2020. We saw the picture earlier of Jimmy Ward, who's an associate of them. He was arrested for DWI, negligent use of a firearm. That gun was matched to 6 shootings around the city. So here are those shootings. So a lot of them, I think 3 of them, or two of them, I guess, on Yucca, 351 Yucca Northwest. You see 7 shots, 5 shots. This party at Comanche Northeast, I think 13 casings. I want to say officers, as they arrived, shots were still being fired at that one. And then on September 25th is the shooting that the chief mentioned. So this was at 10-428 Calle Hermosa. So not all these were victimless, just shooting in the air. This one actually had 2 victims, and I believe 10 houses had damage to them. And I remember a lot of the TV stations did stories at the time. One bullet, I think, went through and hit a TV or something. It could have hit a child's room. So that was that one. These are additional shootings tied to that one gun. January 4th, 2022 on Veranda Road. It appears that the shooter was intending to target someone else who was previously shot at a Halloween party, but it accidentally shot the sister of the intended target. I think that was according to the father at that residence. So, someone else not involved whatsoever in any of these crimes as a victim. Then on January 7th, a gun was pointed at victims and shots fired outside a party on La Veta Drive Northeast. And this one also involved Riley Kellner, James Ward, and another individual. So this Glock was the end of the year in 2020, purchased December 2020. Riley Kellner, his brother, was arrested for selling THC. He had possession of this gun. This Scorpion 9mm was purchased also in December 2020, recovered almost 2 years later as part of a search warrant for a narcotics investigation, and this one has matched to 4 shootings. So here are those shootings. It looks like 3 of them were all on the same evening. It looks like on September 6th at 3119 Tiley Northeast. And I want to say that might be next to or part of a park. And same with 3507 Hoyle Road Northeast. 2 9mm casings matched that Scorpion pistol. This Glock was purchased on 2021 December. It's one of the other ones that has not been recovered, so we're not sure if it's involved in any other shootings. And this is kind of where things concluded. So on January 31st, Adam Kilner is accused of going to his ex-girlfriend's apartment at 801 Locust Place. I think his brother Riley was with him. I think they were exchanging messages, and he ends up shooting several rounds, I think both of them, at his ex-girlfriend's car. We didn't get the gun in that case, but they were able to get these 9mm casings in the parking lot, tested them, and then they matched to 4 additional shootings. So once again, 4,200 Spanish bit, four casings were recovered. Another one at Grisham Park, and then another shooting at Tower Park, where we've had a lot of shootings at that park in particular. So in this one, we had 2 victims with gunshot wounds. One victim was dropped off at the hospital by a car owned by James Ward, who we've mentioned throughout this presentation. Is that it? So that's just a look at all the different shootings. And again, the amazing thing, it comes back to one person who purchased all of these guns legally.
You know, one of the things I want to talk about is, first of all, is like this wouldn't be successful if we didn't have these individuals next to me for our department who work so well together. We've really worked to increase our ability to communicate within ourselves as a department, to take down silos that for years were there where divisions didn't speak to each other. And I commend each and every one of you for working together, getting this information out. But the other thing is, this has to bring the light to the public, and we want the public to be aware of this. Like, these individuals who are out there selling firearms are dangerous. They are extremely involved and to blame for a lot of these shootings. Like, we have this individual that we've tracked down to all these firearms here. 7 guns recovered, 2 more still not recovered. Grand total with the county of 17 different shootings, 163 shots being fired. You know, and just the other day we had another individual go to school to sell guns. And we don't know what the extent of that is yet, as that investigation, I'm sure, is still ongoing. But like, these individuals are providing firearms that are untraceable back to the person who has them, that should not have them in the first place. And this is a serious problem and a serious issue that we need to deal with in the city of Albuquerque, because we have too many people in possession of firearms that should not be in possession of firearms. And this is exactly how they're getting them. So first of all, and in closing, I would just like to thank our state legislature for passing legislation where we can now charge people at the state level for these types of crimes, because we know that federally there are limitations on how many cases they can take. And we want our criminals to know. We want individuals involved in these activities to know that we will find those shell casings, we will trace those guns, and we will build a strong case for these straw purchases at the state level with the data that we're able to collect because of all the processes we have in place. Shot spotter to find shell casings, NIBINs to match those shell casings, and good old-fashioned police work to track down individuals and arrest them and build those criminal cases.
The one other thing, too, that was involved in this extensively is our violence intervention program. So I wanted to ask Commander Giannopoulos to come up and talk a little bit about that process and their interactions with these individuals during this time period. After that, we'll take questions.
Morning, everybody. My name is Jason Giannopoulos. I'm a Deputy Commander with APD's Investigative Services Division. And it's my pleasure to be involved in the supervision of both the violence intervention team and also our gun teams. The gun teams in particular, the gun violence street team, gun violence suppression unit, and the gun violence reduction unit were all instrumental in this investigation. What I want to do also is I want to talk really today about the violence intervention program. A lot of people ask what the violence intervention program is. Well, it's a collaboration between the Albuquerque Police Department, Albuquerque Community Safety, other criminal justice agencies, and community members, in which we use a focused deterrence method in order to deliver a message to people that are involved in gun violence. So with this focused deterrence, what we do is we determine individuals who are at risk or involved in gun violence. The focus is on trying to get these individuals to step away from that lifestyle and to take services from us. What we do is we use, like the chief was saying, good old-fashioned police work, data analysis, and social service to try and accomplish this goal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through the process of looking at individuals in order to deliver messaging to. What we usually do on a weekly basis is we have a series of meetings that we have, the first being our shooting review meeting. That happens every Monday, and what we do is we go over all the shootings, homicides, and group-involved activity over the week. And what we do from there is we look at individuals who were involved as either victims offenders, or have group involvement. And we start looking at them in order to deliver the message to. The next meeting that we have is Duke City Stats. Duke City Stats is where we get the command staff together as well as investigative units, and we talk about the who and the what. Who's out there committing crimes, what type of crimes they are committing, and then we try to answer the how, the why, and the when by looking at particular hotspots and seeing where we can address those hotspots and how we can address those hotspots. And a lot of times we find individuals within those hotspots that we can go out and deliver the messaging to. The last meeting that we have is the investigators meeting. So the investigators meeting is a collaboration with the APD investigative units, our federal partners, other criminal justice agencies, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the DA's office, and probation and parole. And we go over investigations that are occurring, that we are actively investigating, looking at specific individuals who may be driving gun violence. They too are also looked at and chosen for the delivery of the custom notification. So usually we select victims, offenders, and individuals associated with groups that are kind of driving the gun violence. In doing this, Riley Kellner was an individual that we came up with, and we ended up delivering a custom notification to him approximately 2 years ago. So once we select an individual for a custom notification, a representative from APD, which is usually myself, the social services coordinators from ACS, and community members usually come out with us, and we deliver an anti-gun violence message. So the anti-gun violence messaging is customized to the individual, and that's where we get the word custom notification. However, there are potential outcomes to gun violence that we like to stress to these individuals when we go out and go talk to them. The first of that is being shot. A lot of people that we end up choosing to deliver to are individuals who have been victims of gun violence. What we want to do is we want to step in, deliver the messaging, so we don't get that retaliation where we're going back and forth with individuals. So the next thing we talk about is that you could potentially be killed. It's a travesty for our city, it's a travesty for those families and everybody involved. However, one of the big things that we're able to reach people with is we talk about them being arrested and possibly incarcerated. A lot of the individuals that are involved in gun violence in Albuquerque are in their late teens to their early 20s. They only have a couple of decades under their belt. One of the things I like to bring up is if they end up catching a federal charge and being prosecuted, they could get 10 years. Well, in the federal system, you serve 85% of your time, and 8.5 years to somebody who's 20 years old sounds like a long period of time. With the one thing that we really want to do is we want people to accept the social services, and we come out with ACS specifically for that. When we delivered to Riley Kellner, we first talked to his father, and then we talked to Riley. Riley didn't want anything to do with social services. So when we usually go out, we talk to the people that we talk to, there is an 85 to 90% rate of people not recidivating in gun violence, of the people that we actually talk to. And roughly 30% of those people end up taking assistance from social services. And social services, ACS's social services program, can provide a lot of things to individuals. Easily food and clothing, rental assistance, housing assistance. They can help people to graduate high school. They can help them get their GED. They can even help them get into college. We can help them with job placement or even job training. And even we can help with counseling for either addiction or trauma. And those are big things that kind of hit with people when we go out and go talk to them, and things that they can take advantage of and help change their life around and have a better trajectory. However, for those who recidivate and or refuse our services, we continue to look at them for their involvement in gun-related crimes. And as you can see in this investigation, we did deliver the custom notification, but we didn't give up. We kept looking into the individual involved, and it kind of led to this. The Kellner brothers have been associated with a small group of individuals that are responsible for a disproportionate amount of gun violence in the city of Albuquerque. VIP has delivered custom notifications to a lot of these individuals. A lot of those addresses that you saw up on the screen are addresses where we've delivered custom notifications to individuals at those locations. So once we select an individual, excuse me, I'm out of out of line here. So what I wanted to conclude with is this investigation will have an impact on gun violence. We have talked to not only Riley Kellner, associates of his, but other people that have been involved at these parties, these large parties where you have these large gatherings of young individuals. We've gone out and talked to them. We've gone out and talked to their families, and we've delivered the messaging to them. And this investigation can show you what can be accomplished when APD and its partners collaborate on investigations. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I have two questions. And that's okay, so in the beginning, you stated that great job. This is in regards to, in connection to the straw purchases, right? That bill just got signed into law at this year's legislative session. And so do you feel like straw purchases were pretty much, in this case, obviously, this has been linked to 17 shootings. He purchased the gun legally, passed it out to family members, what have you. So do you feel like straw purchases, just in a general nutshell, do you feel like they're the driving force, like an underlying issue for quite some time in connection to numerous shootings and homicides we see throughout the years, just overall crime, given the fact that it has been signed into law with the findings that you guys have been investigating for over two, 3 years, right?
If I understand your question correctly, yes. I believe that this straw purchases law is going to assist us. I believe that straw purchases are one of many factors that we have to deal with individuals illegally obtaining firearms. We also have the individuals who are stealing firearms. We know that we recover a lot of firearms that are stolen that pass from criminal to criminal to criminal. And in every aspect, we have to find a way. And we're not done with this investigation. If the ability for us to charge at some point in time with the universal background checks legislation that was passed a few years ago, we will charge that. But there are difficulties in that because one exception is a family member. And obviously we know that he passed a firearm to his family members. But these individuals who are providing firearms to other individuals illegally are a huge concern and a huge danger to the community in the city of Albuquerque. And we're hoping that this new legislation with straw purchasers will help us prevent these types of incidents and lead to a deterrence, and also educating the community on these topics. If you know somebody who's selling firearms illegally, you have to notify law enforcement. We have to utilize Crime Stoppers. You could get a reward for it, but we have to make sure that we're starting to close the loop, and that every time these individuals are out selling firearms, that we're putting a stop to it. Because, think about it. It is alarming. 17 shootings that we know of. We still have 2 unrecovered firearms, and 1 firearm was recovered as far as Phoenix, Arizona. This is a huge problem, and we need to make sure that we have all the tools in the toolbox to put people in jail and make sure that people are not selling firearms illegally to others. Does that answer your question?
That does, in a nutshell, and just in regards to your question, your violence intervention program that you guys are starting. Sorry, I was taking down notes. Just to make sure that we're clear, because you guys said you sent a custom notification to Riley a couple years ago. I guess when you guys had him on your radar, you guys saw potentially what he could have done, right? So is this in a nutshell to help bridge the gap between law enforcement, potential criminals, and victims? However, if they don't, or it falls on deaf ears and they don't take heed to the help that they need, then obviously they'll suffer the consequences because Riley led to a bigger issue. If what you're saying is clear, is that?
Yes.
It's part of the program. So we do look to enforcement when people don't take the messaging and refuse to take services.
And I'll make it really perfectly clear. We want to work with individuals in the community who may be in a lifestyle that is going to lead to criminal activity. We want to give you resources. We want to be compassionate as a department and help people get out of that lifestyle and give them the ability to make the right choice. But rest assured, if you do not change the direction of your life, I've said it over and over again, people who are responsible for violence deserve to stay in jail. And to me, this helps us emphasize that stance. We want to help you change, but if you don't, we're going to do everything we can to incarcerate you.
In this case, that's what.
And in this case, this individual was told about his lifestyle, given resources, refused to take advantage of those resources and is facing the consequences now.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So the state law that was passed cannot be used in this case?
No.
Because he was, because the only, connecting line is it was a family member, and that's an exemption from the state law?
No, that's for universal background checks.
Oh, okay.
That's, state law could be used even if you gave it. And a lot of times the way the straw purchases is utilized is, a lot of times we see significant others purchasing firearms for boyfriends, husbands, girlfriends, wives, who are prohibited from owning those firearms. So that gives us that ability. But passing a firearm, you gotta remember that selling firearms to others without doing the universal background check is also a crime. So, but there are exceptions to that, and family members is the exception to that.
Okay, is that why this can't be charged, or is that why Aiden cannot be charged with that new law?
He can't be charged with the new law because these crimes were committed prior to the law was enacted, and we had the law on the books.
Okay. So APD did an E-trace on all of these guns?
Yes,
With the right?
APD in collaboration with our federal partners.
Okay, and that's how you, an E-trace with ATF basically tells you where a gun was bought and who bought it?
The origin of the gun, yes.
Yeah, exactly, okay. I was curious, do you know, a timeline of how long an E-trace usually takes to do, by chance?
I would defer to
APD
Anthony.
requesting one and getting results?
Tony, do you know how long it usually takes us? A couple of weeks, maybe?
Back in the day,
Just
Today.
Just in the last few years.
some of the E-traces now, it depends. It really on how responsive the businesses are to go through and get that information to get it back to the ATF to get it to us. We've seen stuff within 24 hours, we've seen stuff within 2 weeks. The average is probably a few days is how it comes through.
Okay, so an E-trace request is made, usually a few days later, you have a result of who bought it, where they bought it.
Yes, sir.
And those businesses, they have to comply, it's just whether they do it very quickly or not.
Yes, I mean, I think that they're mandated by the ATF
Mhm.
to do it on a timely basis.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of course, manpower, staffing, all that.
Logistics,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And so this seems like a pretty just extraordinary example of one person bought 9 guns, connected to 17 shootings. I'm wondering if when you're investigating these types of straw purchases, you find that the crime, the destruction is as widespread as this example you're giving us. Does that tend to be what you see?
You know, and this is probably one of our best cases we've been able to put together. And it's the new technology and our ability to connect all these cases. And I think that's where the importance of, this is new to us as a department. You saw cases up here that were just recovered casings from shot spotter activations. You know, 4 years ago without shot spotter, somebody may have called, may have not called. We may have shell casings, we may not have shell casings. And we probably still have cases where officers still went out and didn't find shell casings, couldn't locate them, and weren't recovered. So there could potentially be more. So this is a collaboration of a lot of good things that are starting to come together. And I think that technology-wise, thanks to the investments made by the mayor, city council, state legislature, there's a lot of people to credit for the technology that APD has had. This is what our future is going to look like with guns, gun tracking, and we're getting there because of all the connections. And it also has to do with learning. Our people have to learn to utilize the systems, what they're capable of. 3 years ago, E-Trace was already available. We were not utilizing it the way we could. NIBIN has been around since 2017-ish? We didn't understand how to utilize it. A big part of NIBIN is ATF, to their complement, flew out a lot of chiefs of police to DC last April. I sat there and I left that presentation and called Cecily and I said, Deputy Chief Barker, we need to start utilizing NIBIN more. There's so many capabilities. So it's a matter of us also learning to use all the tools. And that's where we're at now as a department is we've had such great technology dumps to us. We have to get our people good at utilizing all the tools they have. And I think it's a natural learning that every institution would go through with new technology and learning all the ins and outs of it and how to utilize it. Yes.
So Aiden, he obtained these guns legally, correct?
Yes.
And the guy from Sandia, he did not. He was obviously probably a high school student. I'm not well versed
I don't know all the details. To me, the similarity is the fact that the individual was selling firearms. And this doesn't just go, it's not just about individuals purchasing firearms for other. We also have to look at the fact that the overall concept is individuals providing firearms to those who shouldn't have them and the danger that it creates for the community.
With that legal process, do you think that, because he obtained all of these, 19 guns.
Yes.
Do you think that process may be a little too easy or simple? Because even though he was distributing them to other people illegally, he did obtain them through the legal process. So do you think that that whole system of, background checks, that may be a little bit too not extensive?
I don't think there's anything that the background check would have prohibited him from purchasing these firearms. And this is a hot topic across this country, is like, what is the proper amount of firearms an individual could purchase? And it sounds like you're asking, is it okay for somebody to purchase this many firearms? And currently there are no laws that say how many firearms an individual could purchase. We do know that when somebody purchases multiple firearms in a single purchase, that law enforcement is flagged. So there are some positive parts of that process, but currently there is no violation, or there is no law that says you're purchasing too many firearms. So these would have not been flagged in any way in the current system, and that is a debate that is beyond us today in the Albuquerque Police Department, because that's just a national discussion that would have to take place.
But if he is convicted of the current allegations, then he would be a convicted felon and be prohibited from purchasing guns going forward.
See, and there's another opportunity there for something else that APD is starting to work on, and I don't see Deputy Commander Hartsock here. That's one of the things we're trying to do also now, is we're working to make sure that anybody who does any of these violations, which should prohibit them, that we're getting the paperwork to the federal government to prohibit them. And we're finding little gaps where it's not occurring, and we're in the process of fixing it. We have a great partnership with the district attorney's office. The district attorney himself has said that they're very committed to this. And we did media on this a while back, where we had a person who was deemed incompetent to stand trial and had mental health concerns. That is prohibited from purchasing a firearm. Because of that, our department made a referral to the NICS system, which prevents this individual from purchasing firearms. We want to spread that out. It's not just individuals who are going through mental health crisis, individuals who are convicted of domestic violence, individuals who are convicted of felonies are also included in that, and we got to make sure that we're connecting all the dots between all of our judicial processes and the federal government, and making sure we're reporting these individuals so that we prevent that purchase in the future for those individuals.
And I understand this is more like a national topic. This isn't really direct to Albuquerque, but there's a hot topic right now, of course, of gun restrictions and gun laws and more. Even on Michelle Lujan Grisham trying to pass more gun laws, and shootings now have become way more common in Albuquerque. As of February, we are the second highest state to have crime per capita. And so do you guys have like any, I would say like more solutions? Because I did hear the violence intervention process. I like that a lot. Is there any more ways, do you think, that guns, obtaining them, I should say, can be more
It's disappointing that we have focused so much on the firearm itself, and we have missed opportunities. And this is a scolding to both sides. This is a scolding to both sides of the aisle. Is like, there has to be some compromise and middle ground found where we could get common sense legislation done. The number one missed opportunity in all of these shootings across this country is we are now seeing individuals who are going through mental health crisis, who had a documented mental health crisis, who are legally going and purchasing firearms. And this goes back to exactly what I just finished telling you about. We have to work to connect the dots. When somebody goes through one of these mental health concerns, that if their doctors are worried about them possessing a firearm or sees they have mental health issues, when are we going to pass mandatory reporting for the safety of this country to the NICS system so that those individuals are prohibited from purchasing firearms? And you look at the recent shootings we've had. But we are stuck in so many ways because both sides of the aisle can't find a middle ground. I've given you the middle ground right there. Both sides, please listen. There's a middle ground. We have individuals in mental health crisis that should already be prohibited. Why can't we find a way to make sure that that's reported so that those individuals can't purchase firearms? And I hope both sides of the aisle are listening to that right now.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
So, with the technology of ice powder and everything, my question would be for things, because there's obviously different ways to acquire guns, such as 3D printing, which is now a more commonplace in the UK for acquiring guns with 9mm. What do you think there would be a way to kind of identify if it was 3D printed so that way it's untraceable? Do you know if there'd be a way to somehow get technology for that?
When we recover firearms, our lab can determine whether it was 3D printed or not. And our biggest concern isn't firearms being 3D printed. In areas where guns are unattainable, 3D printing is a great concept. Ghost guns, other cities have problems with ghost guns. We don't, because you could just go to the store or go to a car and break into it and steal a gun, because we see it over and over happen again. I think the state is taking big steps, safe gun storage, straw purchases. I think see a lot of positive things working, but we can tell when somebody's 3D printed one. Our biggest concern with 3D printers right now is it is very easy to convert a semi-automatic to a fully automatic. And we have made that statement that if you do conduct one of these conversions and you are caught with them, that we will recommend and we will push as hard as we can for you to be federally prosecuted. And some of those cases have decades upon decades of mandatory minimums on them. So our youth out there that are coming across these, because we hear the stories all the time that kids are talking about them, trust me, throw it in the trash, get it away from you, because if we catch you with it, whether it's in the gun or not, we're going to make a referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office to have you prosecuted. Any other questions? I loved your question. Thank you.
This is our intern, by the way, Serenity.
Well, you did a good job. We'll give the intern a hand. You guys take care and you guys be safe. Have a good day.